The part of the story that I find that's been left out a lot is that the Department of Homeland Security gave Harvard a 72-hour deadline to come forward with documents on these international students about their disciplinary records, about who was attending what protest, and Harvard didn't do that. So it doesn't sound like President Trump wanted to do this initially, but Harvard just ignored Homeland Security. Isn't that right?
I think that's right. Look, let's be frank. There are too many foreign students in American universities. Harvard, 27.5% of the student body is foreign. When I started teaching there, it was probably 5%. That means every spot that's taken by a foreign student is denied an American student. Harvard should be focusing not so much on making money off foreign students, but on extending its academic privilege to American students. That's number one. Number two, these two kids that were killed in Washington, D.C., Harvard and other universities have blood on their hands. They not only tolerated the kind of incitement and anti-Semitism that would lead a murderer like the murderer who operated in D.C., but they actually taught anti-Semitism. It was part of their curriculum. Intersectionality, race matters curriculum, DEI, are incubators for anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and the kind of violence we saw. President Trump is absolutely correct. If these were foreign students coming in from Nazi Germany in 1935, by the way, Harvard brought a lot of Nazi students and faculty from Nazi Germany. The president of Harvard was a Nazi lover. In 1935, and we and liberals would have loved if the president had said, no, we don't want people coming in from Germany. Look, this goes too far. It also covers Israeli students and Canadian students and British students. So what we need is much more focused and targeted sanctions, focused and targeted on which research projects. They shouldn't be cutting back on research projects involving Alzheimer's and cancer, but they should be cutting back on research that is propagandistic, like at the Divinity School and the Public Health School. So more targeting of which foreign students come in and which don't. By the way, Harvard is going to lose these cases. In the end, the executive has the right to determine, and certainly the legislature has the right to determine who comes in and who doesn't come into the country. It's not up to the courts. They are the least qualified branch to determine who comes into the country.
And you made a very good point. And just to be clear, you know, when an American goes to one of these universities, they may get scholarships. They may not pay the full tuition, but the international students are paying 100% cash tuition most of the time. So Harvard just wants the money, right?
That's true. But also, just getting back for a second to those two people, I can't get them out of my mind, those two young people who were murdered. I predicted their murder, interestingly enough. I recently just wrote a book called The Preventive State, in which I talk about how to prevent murders like the kind we saw in the District of Columbia. And I said, based on my experience defending a lot of protesters during the Vietnam War, I am completely convinced that these violent protests that occurred at Harvard and other places will lead to murders and will lead to bombings. That's what happened during the Vietnam period, when violent protesters ultimately planted bombs, murdered policemen. And I think we're seeing the beginning of that today. And so universities really, really have to look inward and start saying to themselves, we have some responsibility. This from Oman and Saudi Arabia and Qatar. We have an obligation to our students who are going to be murdered, who are going to be discriminated against, if you don't do something in terms of vetting which foreign students are coming in. Now, for them, the violent doers are not foreign, like the guy who killed these two people. But the incitements are coming from universities.
Yeah, we had the picture of the young couple up right now. I understand why you're still thinking about them. I think we all are. It was just horrific. Alan Dershowitz, we appreciate you taking the time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.